This is Tasia Podcast, a podcast that brings on discussions to enlighten and make you more civic minded. I am your host, Joseph Ladd. We endeavor to educate the public about elections processes and security by educating you on how to counter rumors, disinformation, and misinformation. This will ensure that you consume trusted and vetted information. In today's show, I host Life. He is the founder and executive director of an organization in the US called Chess and Community. Life, welcome to our discussion.
My brother Joseph, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. Good to see you again and talk to you again. And I pray that all the great things that you were doing, or that your vision for bringing your country together, and I believe that is something that we will see in full fruition soon, man. But just take it a step at a time, brother.
So much delighted to get this opportunity again to talk to you and exchange ideas with you. And this time round, we have a topic that we need to discuss about, because Kenya is coming to almost near its general election, which will take place on 9th of August 2022. So as from now, the counting is on 50 days to the general election. And what I believe is that every individual has got a right to vote without any sort of interference. I saw that it's good for us to discuss about countering disinformation and misinformation when it comes to election. So, but before we dive into our topic, I just give you this opportunity to introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay. My name is Lemuel LaRoche, also known as Life LaRoche. I teach at the University of Georgia. I'm more in the field of, social work, so social development, looking at micro and macro systems. I also run a local nonprofit. I guess another word would be sort of like an NGO, and we focus a lot on youth development, and we find ways to marry youth development with economic development, with workforce development, as a way to grow not only our city, but to grow countries and communities around us. So that's a brief introduction of who I am. I'm always humbled to be here with you, Brother Joseph, and I'm really looking forward to this dialogue.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. It's good that our audience now know you and what you are doing. At Samburu Empowerment Network, we kind of have a duty as individuals to do civic education to our people and educate them on matters relating to election process. We've kind of started a conversation online campaign called I Support a Peaceful Election, and social media has become a tool of information. No country is actually left behind when it comes to use of social media.
Do everybody have access to social media, or is it only more of, because even in the U.S., sometimes there's a perception that in the rest of the world they show you that the U.S. is economic and we're like an economic juggernaut, but even in small rural areas in the U.S., people don't have access to computer, the Wi-Fi's, even in the United States. So when I'm thinking about the work that I do, I always have to think about it from the standpoint of, am I reaching everyone? So when you said, okay, everybody is online, what percentage of your country is not online? Because if there's a percentage of the country that is not online, then do they even have a voice, right? So that's something always to consider, to think about, because when we start discussing important and really critical topics, the people who have access to the information, the people who have access to computers, get to lead and to dictate what is going on, versus the people in the rural communities and the rural areas that don't have access. Then they always will feel like their voices are not heard. And whenever someone feels like their voice is not heard, this is when the seed of manipulation can always seep in and start to say, well, this is what's happening. And even with social media, what we have noticed, we have to be careful. We have to be careful, because where are these platforms coming from? Where are the Facebooks, the Instagrams, and all these platforms come from? Who controls the algorithm? What AI, artificial intelligence, is being trained? And now people have noticed that that's the new warfare. They could use social media as a way to disseminate misinformation, right? Targeting on a community, a country, and start to manipulate the population by dividing them. So even using social media And this is where in some countries people say, no, we're not using social media because that allows a foreign interest to manipulate. Look at what happened in Ethiopia. Look at what happened during the Arab Spring. Look at what happened in all these other outrage. Social media is a powerful tool. When used, it can mobilize and it can uniform people, but it can also be used as a weapon by a foreign entity. So that's something we always need to be careful of.
That's a very good point. When we talk about accessibility of social media platform here in Kenya, I don't really have the real statistic, but what I know is that the young generation, which is the majority, can access the social media just from the look of things and also from observation that majority are using. But when it comes to election, young people, the elites of the community are into it. So, but now the few, those ones who can be able to write and read what they share in the social media and what they tell those ones, those relatives and those ones who follow them, who can listen to them. You know, at the end of the day, it will trickle down to them, even if they're not really using it in the real sense. So indirectly, it will affect how the communication or how the information is circulating in the community and actually in the countries. As I observe the campaigns taking on, we have two types of campaigns. We have campaigns which are in person, which are going whereby politicians are visiting people, visiting villages and addressing these people, telling them their policies. This is what they're going to do when they take office. But there is also an online campaign which is taking place behind the scene on the keyboard, whereby people try to challenge each other and try to share information, trying to discredit this person, discredit the other one, or try to give themselves points. So, and that's where now the kind of misinformation and disinformation chip in, because people share information without even verifying the source, without actually thinking before they link. So, and that's why I saw that it's good for us kind of discuss and let people know what this misinformation and disinformation is, and how can they actually be able to identify that this is a fake news and I should not share it.
Yeah, it's that's a very good question because it's funny. Now it's not funny. It's actually sad that as I'm hearing what's going on in Kenya, we're experiencing the same exact thing in the U.S. Right? Like we like to show the world that we have it all together. We're experiencing the same exact thing here, where there is highly effective and organized misinformation and disinformation campaigns, where there is heavy resources, right? And a lot of it becomes down to interest. I have an interest. You understand? We got the sort of the two-party system. Then we have all these other, Libertarian, Green Party. We have these other sort of smaller parties that are springing up as well. But there is a two-party system. And one party say, this is what we are about. We're for the people. We're for this. The other party is saying, this is what we're about. We're for this and this and this. Vote for me. No, vote for me. Right? And then there's what they call super PACs. We have what's called super PACs, where people can actually start putting money into these super PACs. And these super PACs become where a person said, I didn't say it. It was the super PAC, right? I just funded this organization, and this organization is putting out all the information. And what they say in their minds, they don't believe they're given misinformation. They're just bending the truth so it can lean towards their favor and their interests, right? So this is where the super PACs, and now we're to the point now where corporations, businesses can dump billions of dollars into super PACs to disseminate information so that they can discredit an opponent, to discredit a person, to sway a person's vote. These are things that at this point they have mastered how to use on this side, right? So I think the most important thing is, first of all, how do you vet the person you're getting the information from, right? Even to today, we get so many people like befriending me, want to be your friend, that shares the same name with somebody you know. And then it's easy to create a fake account, have somebody pretend to be somebody else, and just put out a post. And before you know it, everybody's attacking that person. And the person said, that's not even my account. I didn't build that page. This is where we say we have to be careful, because a lot of that information is coming from other and sometimes outsourced or sometimes internal, industries. So how do you do? The number one thing is, whenever I get something from a friend that says something, or I see a friend of mine's that say something about campaigns or that talks about a political issue, and I know that that person doesn't really move, he or she doesn't step in a space where they disseminate information, I call them and I ask them, I say, yo, did you know that you have an ad out that's talking about this? They said, I haven't been on Facebook or haven't been on social media in 2 weeks. Well, there's an ad right now that you're talking about this. So number one, go back to the one-on-one, the human connection. If somebody's making a claim or say something, reach out to the person. And don't reach out to the person because you disagree and you want to fight against them. Reach out to them to assure that, I saw that you mentioned this in your social media. Please give me some facts. Give me your sources. Where are you getting that information from? Because I want to learn more. What that does is it either allows the person to share their information where he or she has gotten it from, and you can go to the source. You got to go to the root of the problem, not start arguing with the leaves on the tree. You got to go to the root. Where is it coming from? Go to the root. Share your sources. And once they share it, go into their sources. Where are you getting this information from? And what you begin to do is you begin to see that there is a network of information. There are two people. There are people that research information, and you always have to vet it with one or two people. If I hear something, I have to vet it. I want to make sure that two more people, I want to get some more information to vet that information. Sometimes you will see things contradicted. And when things are contradicting it, vet that information. But oftentimes when we vote from our emotions. I feel this, he said that he can do this, everybody let's go do it, right? Because if I believe in somebody or I want to vote for somebody, anything somebody say against that person, I'm going to always want to challenge it. Instead of me saying, let me think about this, let me ask. Whenever information comes into your database, you always vet it. Where is it coming from? Let me see your sources. If it's a friend of yours, call that person and ask them, did they share that? And if so, where? Everything don't needs to be done on social media, right? That is a tool that people have manipulated. You can do it through algorithms, through AI. It's easy to do it, right? I don't even need to be in Kenya, and I could be right here in Georgia, create a fake account and start disseminating information just to start confusion, right? So, because I know people research what percentage of Kenyan is literate, is illiterate. Okay, if this percentage of the country is illiterate, then that means I can easily develop some type of campaign to challenge or to continue to divide. Because you know what happens when they divide? We can conquer. When two brothers fight to the death, a stranger inherits the father's land. When brothers fight and bicker and go to war with each other over politics, over religion, over whatever, who comes in and start buying up the real estate, all right? This is where we need to understand who's really behind some of these campaigns to manipulate. And I'm not saying it's always the West, it's always an external force. It may be an internal force. Somebody, I want access to this. I want power. I want my party in. I want my party in. If the majority of the youth is educated, the majority of the youth understands the technology and can lead, then the question is there a youth party? What is it that the youth want? Right? In this state, we have like the mayor's youth summit, where the youth, we give the youth an idea to talk about their interests, talk about the things they want. And it's one thing to talk about it and another thing to say, well, how can you help us develop it using your technology, using the information and stuff that you know to give the youth a voice to build. But the youth, they've learned that from apartheid. They've learned that from apartheid, that when a young in any country begins to stand up, then the young has the ability to take over, right? And people have learned from apartheid. It says, okay, now how do we confuse the youth? How do we keep the youth in a state of misinformation? Give them information that's false. Bend the truth a little bit. I'm not going to blatantly say something, well, this person, Kenya, understanding internal politics, say something outrageous. No, I'm going to take pieces of what's actual and I'm going to just slip small disinformation and misinformation nuggets in there. So as you read it, you begin to digest it and download that information, and you become a parrot where you just repeat what you read, repeat what you heard without even taking a step back and vetting the information. This person says everything may be true, that 2 paragraphs, 1 sentence may be false, but the rest of it may seem truth. I start reading, it agrees with me. I'm reading, I'm saying, yeah, because it's agreeing with what I want. And I look at the 1 paragraph and I read it, and that paragraph now sits somewhere in my subconscious mind, that 1 line. And then before I know it, I repeat that line. And everybody's like, where are you getting that information from? from this article, and people look at it like it's true because 90% of the work is true, but one paragraph was misinformation. And this is how these people have manipulated and learned how to start chaos within different countries.
That's really at the point, and almost everything is similar because that's what we're experiencing here. One thing that I've noticed, the creation of fake accounts, people creating fake accounts. It's a phenomena which is also affecting us right now. So we have these groups, either on Facebook, especially most of the time, where people discuss issues, some issues that are social, some which are politics, depending with the time. So you get some people who want to interfere with the flow of information. They have their own interests. So they decide to create the fake accounts so that it gives them the anonymity, whereby they can share the information. They really know that it will be fake information, but they need to share it because they need to manipulate the emotions of the people. They need to configure the feelings and the emotions. Because the moment you interfere with someone's emotion, then it means you can be able to control the decision that that person is going to take. And that's where I noted that, yes, there is an issue of this misinformation when we share information which is not verified. At the end of the day, it will affect the decisions that the voters are going to make. And people stop voting on the reasons, the basic or the normal reasons why we fought about employment, about social amenities, getting good road networks and all that. And then the fake information will divert that kind of reasoning into an emotional kind of contest whereby we compete because we are in different factions. And then that now raises a question whereby we need to actually educate these people or tell them on some of the basic reasons why we should vote. Why is democracy there? And why should you go to that ballot? What are you going to do in that ballot? Are you going to show that the supremacy of the group that you are following, or the ideology that you are following, or you are going to have a voice on what you need to be changed, especially during this hard economic time, whereby we have social problems, we have economic and political issues. So I just need you maybe to kind of give us some of the reasons why you think that people should follow when they're voting, and not the kind of emotional things that can be affected by the information that we consume on social media.
No, I think you said a lot of very important things, right? And that is first of all, what is voting, right? It's I am putting my faith and trust in this party or this individual to do the right thing. Now, whether that person's going to do the right thing or not, we don't know, right? But I'm looking to put my trust in that. Now, the question now becomes, again, what are the demands that the youth want? Because if you have youth, if this, let's say, group have a sense of youth who are concerned about this issue, and this group has youth who are concerned about this issue, this party or that party, then it's just going to turn the youth against each other. And it's just going to be a whole bunch of misinformation sent to each other. But I think you said something important. There is one more step in teaching people when we were talking about voting, is that step of educating the people on what it means to vote, what it means to vote emotionally, what it means to vote religiously, what it means to vote politically, and what it means to vote socially. You might have a political party that you disagree with, but you agree with their social issue, right? Or their social stance. You might have a political party that you completely agree with their political and social stance, but they don't go to the same church you go to. They don't believe in the same God you believe in, right? And there goes another layer of problems, right? Then you have another group. So looking at those three elements, right? That socially, that politically, and the, social, politically, and sort of that religious vote. And a lot of those is what leads us to our emotional. We're emotional people, right? We're emotional, we're passionate. When we do things with our spirit, with our heart, because we see it. We're visionaries. We can see the future. We can see what is perfect sense. If the majority of the country is youth, what happens when we educate the youth? What happens when we can give the youth the skills and the passion and the skills that they need and put them in leadership positions, and then that can help grow and support the youth, right? So it's easy, but everyone else also recognizes the youth may be the easiest to manipulate, right? Because you're young, right? We're still, and again, not saying that all young people we can get manipulated. No, even as an adult, I can be manipulated, but I could be manipulated easier when I am younger, right? Unless I am very aware of my situation. And it's sad because we don't want to get to the point where, how do you tell a youth not to vote emotionally, right? Emotions, my emotions are high, but we need to start educating. What does it mean when you vote with your emotions? Emotions can be manipulated. When I am voting from an emotional space versus learning about what this person is saying, learning about what the article I just read, the information that's purposely designed to press that button to get me riled up, to go out, and before I know it, I set fire on something, and I'm like, what did I just do? Because I allow my emotions to take control over me, right? So we recognize that they're going to be targeting the youth, and I think it is important that when you're educating people, you educate them on what does voting emotionally look like. What does it mean? You're just voting off your emotions, not voting on any particular issue. Again, there are things I agree with this party and things that I agree with that party, right? So how do I take pieces of both of them and use that to strengthen my village? Not if we vote for this person, then we're just going to turn this village against this village and we just going to fight. When brothers fight to the death, stranger inherits the father's land, right? And that's something that's key. And they've mastered how to manipulate our emotions through music, through social media. They've mastered how to do that, right? Mastered. Learn psychology. Learn how these people use these things to manipulate. So I think it is important for us to say, look, when an issue comes before me, right? Sometimes I read things and it boils me up. And I ask myself, who's the author? Let me look up who's the journalist. Let me look up that journalist, right? Not to look the journalist so I can stalk him or her and send them letters. And no, let me look up who this person, what party do they belong to? Do they even live in this country? Right? Do they even live in the country? Right? Who is that person? Let me look up that person. Let me look at other articles that person wrote. Because you may see that all of a sudden, this article, somebody just puts the person's name in there and it's just talking hate and divide and this. And you look at other articles the person wrote and it had nothing. It says nothing. And it was a totally different perspective. That's when you know, okay, this may be a fake news. This is fake information, right? This is when you're not reacting emotionally. It allows you to think better in that state. Let me just take 2 minutes, 5 minutes to vet this information, look up the journalist, find out other work from this journalist to see if it's the language is the same, the writing patterns are the same, the ideologies are the same. If not, then you know that this information is fake. And maybe there needs to be somebody who is there to really begin to see it. When you're looking in the comments and every now and then somebody just come in, when people are having very intellectual conversation, somebody just come in there and say, death to this people or hate these people and this, then it's like, oh, this is this person. Collect all of that information, especially collect the information, collect the views, find out who it is, start reporting that, because this is how they manipulate stuff. So, but it happens when you're not emotionally in check, right? So there are things I agree with both. There are things I disagree with both. But am I going to allow that to turn me into a pawn on the chessboard, and I'm just going to go and cause havoc for something I don't even know, something that could be manipulated from outside for whatever interest, or something that can be manipulated from inside because one person wants a position, right? Small things. We don't think about the collective. We only think about ourselves. And that's what I think was the poison of the process that began to, we move from collectivism into individualism, and even tribal, like what this tribe want on that tribe. So we're going to turn the tribes against each other. And this is how it's always worked. Divide and conquer, divide and rule. Did I answer your question, Joseph? I know I got long-winded there.
Yes, you've really answered. And one thing that I like about this conversation is that it seems that what you experience in the US is almost similar to what we are experiencing when it comes to the internet that we are using, the social platforms that we are using. We are almost experiencing almost the same thing. When you realize that you have a fake news, that you've done your research, then you came to a point that this news is fake. Then how can you report that fake news?
I think it's a couple of things, because sometimes, again, we don't know So there are all kinds of online engines to report fake news, but there are people that have mastered how to use these spaces. So I think more than just reporting fake news, I think what is important is when you start putting these people on display, screenshot the news, screenshot the person to say, everyone, be careful of this. This article, you have to start reporting. If there is a platform, you take that information and you start reporting. Look at this. We vetted this information. This is a fake account of this and this. So everyone, be careful. If you're friends in this group, be careful. This person is actually spreading this information. Start putting these people on Front Street. Put them on display. Because you can wait for some corporation in Seattle to sit down and figure out, okay, think about it. A corporation in another country sit down with access to data from Kenya, from Ethiopia, from all over. And now we're wondering why we're having so much problems, right? It's interest behind it. Interest. People want to figure out a way to do business, not to do business where I can come in and we can share the wealth. No, I want to take the majority of the stuff out and I can pay a puppet to just sit there and keep giving me that access. Right? So if you're waiting for these corporations to do it, look at what happens when you start announcing it. When you develop a wing of that party or that organization to say, let's combat every time we see, report, please tell the people, report it to somebody and somebody can just share it. Another fake news alert, beware, scam, just keep putting stuff up. But understand that somebody might end up start using your platform and start saying, beware of this. So these are things you have to start doing it internally. You can't wait for a corporation in Seattle to approve whether this information is fake in Kenya. They don't have the same mindset. They don't understand, they don't understand the political and social issues, right? So you got to be careful with that.
Are there some efforts that these big corporations that own platforms like Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook, and others, have they put some measures in place that can be able to help in reducing misinformation because it is a threat to democracy?
Yeah, it is, but it's and that it raised a very complicated question, and this is one where we're a debate and dialogues that we're seeing on this side, with a lot more pressure starting to be put on these, I would say, technical corporations that have access to so much information. And what is that information? Data. I know what you're watching. I know what you're linking up. I know what you research on Google. I know what your favorite color, your favorite team, your favorite thing to wear, your favorite thing to buy, and I can use that information to manipulate you, right? So these corporate, technical corporations, social media giants, they have mastered, again, the psychology of how to manipulate and target the person. Because the ultimate thing is, I am a corporation. I need to understand everything about you so I can sell you something you may want. Even though I don't have money for it, I want this, right? So my job is to sell that to you. So this is why they have mastered AI and they've mastered how to design algorithms to manipulate an individual. Now, take a step back and says, how do we now manipulate a country or a community? What is the common word that everybody in this community research? Boom, we have that. Now, how do we take that information and apply that into a story that can drive the emotions of that community, right? So the question about, is it a threat to democracy? On this side, people have realized, like, wow, these corporations or these social media platforms can be manipulated. And in some cases, it looks like there are no guards guarding the gate. Anybody could just allow anybody to go in. We look at what countries like China, other countries decide to just ban it. No, Ethiopia said, no, we're banning it. You can't. But then it's like, where's freedom, democracy? You're gonna take away the people's right to have a democracy, to have a voice. And it's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just being careful that we don't turn our election issue into a civil war, right? Because the civil war benefits who? Who does it benefit? So the question of a lot of and again, I can't speak. I am not members of, I don't sit on their boards, so I don't know exactly what their objectives are, but I can just based on experience and things that we're seeing and things that we're experiencing on this side. People are starting to reduce on this side, the local, not local, but our government is starting to reduce the power, right? Where people should have access. I don't want to use this platform, and people are starting to create new platforms to counter those big giants because they realize that that they're no longer doing their job at the gate. And the question is, the corporations are saying, well, no, by you removing my platform from your city, from your country, you're not giving the people a right to use their voice. People have been using a voice before this platform came there. How were they able to do it, right? How were people able to vote? How were people able to communicate before these platforms, right? So a lot of these corporations say, no, our let's say Facebook, our machines is needed in this country. They're needed in this country. So I think the first thing is, this is an ingoing battle where I think from a corporation's business interest, all right, do I want my product used all over the world? Yes. Now, if one part of the world say, well, you're not, and like we saw Twitter ban what the president, what Trump, the previous president of this country, and Twitter even banned what presidents of other countries are saying, right? And they say, well, we're banning this because we want to stop political violence, misinformation, but yet we're seeing the other stuff keep going. So it's like, so who get to choose who bans what? You can ban this person, but you can't ban this person. This is when we begin to see that there are agendas behind it that is greater than us, right? So I don't think it's a situation where it may be a situation where a corporation say, this is a threat against democracy because I have a tool that can actually now be used to manipulate democracy, to feed my interests, to feed my purpose. And that's the other part that we need to really be careful of.
The last part that I wanted us to look at is on misinformation and how it brings on violence, how it makes conflict to erupt and then it leads to violence.
Yeah, and I want to bring it even smaller, right? Not even just during the democratic process. We're seeing that on this side, how groups, teenagers in our city are shooting each other because of things that are being said on Instagram, right? So that because of things that are being said on one part, and then when we go to vet it, we see that that information came from a fake account that was created from some person in Israel or for some little person down in the country somewhere that's outside manipulating it, manipulating internal. Where somebody hears something and they said, man, you talked about my mother. You said something about me on social media in front of thousands of people. And now I feel like I've been violated. So now to get my just due, I'm going to cause you physical harm because you've abused my name. And the other person said, I didn't even put that account up. No, you did because of this and this. But if I know that this person goes out with this person and this person hangs out with this sect and this, then I can just study that, manipulate that, and turn the two groups against each other. This is what we're seeing happening here in our city. And young people are shooting each other because of that, right? So not even on the political level, just on the one-on-one human level, we're seeing this type of interruption. And the question is always, how do we counter that? And this is what schools are talking about. This is what police departments, and in some cases, people have noticed that it's certain fake pages created by some police departments to do this kind of stuff, right? To start this kind of, but that's another story. I don't want to go there. But the schools, everybody is trying to think about what's happening because we see that things are happening on social media, and then that spills into the schools, and that spills into the community to the point where a kid ends up getting killed. A young adult ends up getting killed because of something being said. And we're seeing that across the country, in Chicago, in Macon, Georgia, in New York, everywhere we're seeing. And this is the level of violence look like it's just been ramped up. And people are saying, why? And then we're tracing it back to social media. A lot of it is coming from social media. And it can only work if I am not emotionally balanced, if I'm not emotionally stable. Sometimes somebody might have a disagreement with you. Somebody might not like something you said, something you did. It's okay. I'm not going to get to the point where I want to hurt a person, but why have we? Because I'm a little emotionally balanced. I don't want my name to be defamed and somebody just misrepresent me and this and that and say, oh, start a whole campaign against me and it can affect my livelihood, my family, I don't want that. So when you see it, you try to find a way to, how do we silence that? And how do I go to the author of it and says, can we talk? What brings you to this point where you can say this? So I'll say this, if you feel that you're at the point now where you're seeing something and it stirs you and it gets you frustrated and it gets your blood boiling, check yourself. And you have to ask yourself why. You need to understand what has access to your buttons. I can easily press your button from here and I can get you to go stir sharing and you go end up hurting somebody or hurting yourself or doing something that you regret later, right? That's only going to cause a domino effect. One domino fall, the other domino fall, and before we know it, we see chaos within communities, within countries, right? So if somebody says something, right, go reach out. I'd like to know, can we have a dialogue about this? And if the person says, no, you can't have a dialogue, whatever, then you start looking at other avenues to try to resolve it versus, well, I'm going to say this about this. And before you know it, what they say, everybody's washing their laundry in public. Everybody's washing the dirty laundry in public because we don't like what you did this and you did this, and you have families arguing on social media. And it's like, man, that's your dirty laundry needs to be washed in the house, not on social media, right? So the first step is, how do we start to really appreciate each other first, more than just, how much money you have? I don't want to look at you from a value point. Are you valuable to me? Yes, no, you're not valuable to me. I don't want to talk to you. You're valuable to me. How do I manipulate you to get what I want? We need to move away from that mindset. That is not our mindset. That is something that was baked inside of us, something that was programmed and conditioned inside of us, right? Two, how do we begin to regulate our emotional? How do we create a more emotional health point, right? An emotional standard, right? If I find myself being triggered by something, I need to understand what is that thing that is triggering me. And the sooner I get to understand that, the more I have control over my mind, my attitudes, and my emotions. And when something happens, you can start to look at it, says, okay, reprocess. I get some information. The information is fake, right? Or the information triggers me. Calm. I always try to get okay, where's this coming from? Now let me research. Let me vet it. Let me also look at others. If anybody else can vet this information. If more than one people vet the information, then let me start to look at the issue of what they're talking about, right? Two, let me identify who the author is. When I get the journalist, whoever wrote the article, then I can start to look at other information and to see, maybe this person is agenda, or maybe this person is a mouthpiece for this political party, right? So try to go through those steps, but I think the most thing is hard when we're talking about the violence, because we know what happened. We know what violence looked like. We know what happens when Cain killed Abel, and it just keeps going. That cycle just continues, and we're trying to figure out a way to stop it. If something happens, if this thing leads to violence, how do we get back into who we are to say, can we communicate about this? Can we talk about this? And some people are reasonable, others are not. What do you do with people that are not reasonable? Then you begin to reach out for somebody they may know. We may have a mutual friend. Can we figure out a way to resolve this? If you can't get to the person direct, look for a mutual friend. But that takes a sound and a calm mind to do so. And whenever election seasons, and we're seeing the same thing, like ads that are coming. Like I can put a commercial on and it was going to be ads that target us, that targets me, and we could be looking at the same thing and it's a different ad that targets you, that shows you that they have mastered how to use the algorithm against us to feed us what we want or to support what we want and slip disinformation and misinformation in there. So it's subtle, very subtle, right? But the most important thing is, if you create a space where people can actually start talking, I think while it is important to do that on social media, it may also be important to do that in person. How do we start talking about the misinformation? How do we start having a monthly community villages? If it's 50 days away, then, every 10 days, let's really talk. Let's talk about, the two different parties. Let's figure out whether whoever wins, I want to get to know you as a brother and as a sister. Like, start it early so it doesn't, when a party wins, then there's a line in the sand. You belong on that side or that side, right? And then we're gonna, who wins? The stranger inherits.
Yeah, that's really important, especially when it comes to winning, and then we have to accept the result.
Get the parties. You have to get the party. Outside of that, let's start talking to each other, skating together, play baseball together, football, Let's start doing some campaign. This is a peace party, where this is a party from both sides. So come, let's play. Whether we win, leadership in both sides. Come on together in a soccer match, in a football match. So that way, win or lose, let's continue as brothers and grow our city together forward. Everyone else, outside forces, or maybe in-town forces, needs the division, needs the chaos. Because when there's chaos, then it's easy for outside corporations to rule, to manipulate, to come in, to take, to buy. And everyone else around you will have access to businesses, but the local Kenyans don't have. But everybody else seems to have, right? So there's outside interests that may be involved here that we have to always be careful from. So how do we, 50 days, you have 50 days from now to start developing proactive, peaceful campaigns. Like I can vote for this party or this party, but we're friends. We're friends. Whether they win or not, we're going to still work together as friends to build our communities, our social communities, because because beyond the political party, we have a recession, inflation, we're seeing what's happening. And the minute we divide because of party, and then situations get worse, and the finances get worse, and the cost of food goes up, this is what we're seeing here. Cost of gas goes up. Now it's me versus you. Me, I'm gonna eat or you eat, and I'm gonna eat from you.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
And that is the mindset how these countries, including ourselves, our politics can be manipulated to cause deeper issues. Everybody get guns, and I have my gun, and you have your gun, and we're looking out each other's window, and we forgot that the sun is still shining. We forgot that we can just go to the river together and fish. We forgot that we can just go play soccer together, football, right? We forgot that we can just enjoy each other's company. But we got foreign guns looking out the window, ready to fight to kill each other. When brothers fight to the death, the stranger in heart inherits father's land.
Thank you so much. Also, how can we use the internet positively as we wrap up our conversation?
No, and I think it's first of all, there's something about bad news, right? People, we tend to only want to see bad news, right? We tend to, bad news spreads quicker or faster than good news, right? When it's bad news, it spreads like wildfire. When it's good news, nobody's looking at it, right? So we need to understand why. There's a science to why this is happening. What we had to learn to do is how do we now use social media to really talk about all the great things that we're doing socially. And I want to just encourage everyone, look at chess. If you're on Instagram, look at chess and community. Chess and community on Instagram. And you look at all, and I'm going to keep putting just permission. I don't want to stand on any political position. Politicians come all the time. Can you vote for me? Can you? We're going to talk about the social issue here with the youth. How do we better youth? And what we do is we encourage all organizations, put positive information of all the things that you're doing with your youth. And I will share it. So if I see another organization doing something good with youth, I share it. I don't care if they share mine or not. I'm going to share it because I want more people to see that there are positive things happening in the world, right? So how do we use social media for good, right? When we see disinformation, we can always counter that disinformation. I try to use all of my platforms, Life the Griot. That page, you'll see it. It's used for good. You know, social media, Facebook, Life the Griot, Chess and Community. I use it just for positive, right? So what I try to do is I challenge others to share more positive. There's a lot of great things happening in Kenya. Why are we not? Are we seeing that? Are you seeing that? Are you only seeing the negative? Only you seeing the political stuff? In the midst of all of that, share all the other good things. Start a campaign where we challenge every youth group in Kenya. If you're doing something, take 30 seconds and talk about the good work that you're doing. Take 15 seconds and talk about the good work you're doing in your county, in your region, right? Start positive campaigns that helps people just engage and help people to know that good things are happening. If not, the mind gets warped and to only begin to think that it's negative things happening. So I would challenge, kind of start a campaign that encourages people, share the positive. We're going to offer a stipend. Whoever have the most positive outlook, we may give you whatever, you know what I mean? Free this. You can get corporations, local corporations to support you and support that agenda. So those would be some avenues that I would go.
Well, thank you so much, Light. It's been a very, very good time having you at Asia Podcast, sharing all those ideas. I know all this information is going to have a positive impact on our listeners, and it's going to change the course of action that people are going to take on their view on what they consume online. I really appreciate your coming and accepting our invitation. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Peace and love to everyone. Remember, don't let anything manipulate us into destroying ourselves and destroying each other. Don't let anything manipulate us into destroying ourselves and destroying each other. We love each other. We've been here before all this technology. We're going to be here when it's gone, right? So please love each other and let's continue to build these bridges because we can learn from each other. We have things that we can teach you. You have things that you can teach us. We learn from each other, right? So peace and love. Thank you all so much. You have all my stuff, Brother Joseph, and I look forward to talking again. We could do this again soon. All right.